She's the TeaEO of Calabash Tea and Tonic, which is in DC. Calabash Tea is where you can go.com to check it out. Let me welcome the one and only alchemist herself, Dr. Sunyatta Amen. Welcome. Hey, you are muted. Ciao. Come on.
Thank you. How you feeling today?
I am good. I'm good. I'm good. You were shaking your head and everything. I don't think we talk enough about fertility and things. I have several friends that are going through IVF and, that whole process with the needles and everything. And, to give birth is a beautiful thing. It's not something that I've ever wanted to do, but, I definitely respect it. And children are our future and I love them as long as they get to go home with the parents. Yes. But, I feel like we should talk about these things. We just had a woman on who has a donor registry for people who have had, their children through donations of either eggs or sperm. And so that the children can come together. And so many people don't tell that their children are, so they got to find out, like, what the hell?
Yeah.
We got to do better.
We definitely do. We're doing better. And I'm really glad to hear that folks are exploring options, including adoption. If my children hadn't snuck me, I probably wouldn't have had them. So there it is. But
you said they snuck you. Come on through.
Yeah.
I love it. That's hilarious.
They overcame odds and were persistent.
They were gonna be here. You better say that, Dr. Amen. They were not playing.
Those ancestors, they're like, we're showing up. We don't care.
Like your birth control is trash.
Yeah,
it's like, watch what we do.
Hurdles. So I will say it's great when we're able to explore issues, especially for women of color, where uterine health and, even being recommended wholesale to having ovariohysterectomies or myomectomies or whatever the case is, because fibroids may be an issue and other things. So I'm really glad that we're looking at the preventative measures that we can obtain, in our lives and impart to our friends and family, and the things that we're doing to really make that a reality, and not just take a recommendation on face value, but go and get second and third opinions. These things are super important. And I love that we're really leaning into that. When we talk about Ida B. Wells and we talk about all the folks who had conversations about Mississippi appendectomies, and just these forced things upon women of color, especially where our reproductive health is concerned, that, whether or not you wanted to use your plumbing, you wanted it in working order. And I see you have a picture of Ida behind you.
Ida, Fannie Lou Hamer got sterilized, what they call it, sterilized. Fannie Lou Hamer also had a procedure done to her. And, I love that in Maroon's Medicine Chest, those of you who are in Nubia, please go back and watch some of the early discussions with Dr. Amen, because there were a lot of people coming in asking about fibroids and asking about, maintaining the health in that area. And you provided a lot, and there's some teas and tonics that you have for Punani Health as well.
Punani Power, yes,
Punani Power.
I am a fan of Punani Power, and so I think all Punanis need to be powerful, no matter what they're doing. And so I'm glad to hear this conversation, and that these things have come out of the closet, with our aunties and our grandmothers and great aunts, and we heard whispers of female trouble, but the idea that now we're able to have these conversations aloud, and you've built such an amazing network here and in Nubia, where we can discuss these things freely without shame, and knowing that it's not our failure, even though things may be called ovarian failure. It's just challenges, and we've met bigger challenges as women of color, and so these are just more challenges, and we have options, and that's good.
I was saying earlier, Tyler Merritt was here, that our secrets are, we don't talk. We've been conditioned in our community to not talk about
Yeah.
things. You know, first, children should be seen and not heard. I know there are vestiges of enslavement that
Yeah.
it was about keeping us safe. So there was a, you know, the notion that if we, you know, we can't talk about these things because mass is going to get us, and you know, you don't want to raise children to be, you know. So if we could keep as much information as possible away from the young people, but what ended up happening is the institutional knowledge didn't get handed down, and you are a product of institutional knowledge being handed down from your dad, from your grandparents, and one
For
of the
better or
things you
worse. For
yeah,
better.
I'm no, but you know, the one I think the thing that makes you so powerful is that it's you're not starting from scratch with this, right? So whether you know when we talk about you know the witchcraft and you know the elements being manipulated, this is generations long, and then you add medical school. Your dad was a doctor, you add that to it, so there's book knowledge as well and Western you know
Well, my dad was
understandings.
an ethnobotanist.
Oh,
So
excuse me, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
and he
What?
went to Cuba to study too. And so his field was really how do we connect these indigenous medicines back to modern health? And what I love what you're saying in terms of having an unbroken chain of information. It's also a responsibility that we all have in cultural custodianship to make sure that we're sharing these things and bringing our brick, as you like to say, right, which I think is brilliant, and helping to build those institutions that allow us to learn these things. That I can't tell you. I mean, I go to Howard University at least 3 times a semester to teach the medical students, dental students, and other allied health professionals about herbal medicines because they invite me, they want to know more, and I'm thrilled because this is a relatively new acceptance where their professors are willing to sponsor such events. They're sitting in there with them. It's a great conversation because, as you see, we want options. And maybe
Mm.
we're a little sick and tired of being sick and tired. And we're moving into a space where we want to consider our wellness in a preventative fashion. So I'm thrilled, you know, just to be
Wow.
here.
I'm grateful. Dr. Sunyatta is here. Sunyatta Amen. You can follow her there at Calabash Tea. So, healthy hot takes. We're
Mhm.
gonna start this journey of
Yeah.
taking things that were in the news and or that's in you know people are talking about, and
Mhm.
you bringing your spin. So, what you got today?
Yeah. So today I was thinking about the fact I've read an article and I'm pulling it for you that talked about how half the tea in the United Kingdom in really in Europe, right? Like that half of the black tea that's found there is produced in Kenya. Like
Oh,
Kenya is the undisputed champion. So let's take it from here, right? Tea in general, just the tea plant, the Camellia sinensis plant. When we think about green tea, black tea, white tea, oolongs, this is all from the same plant. It's just how it's treated. And Kenya is a heavy hitter in that capacity. Let's just talk about what people drink on the planet, right? The top 3 drinks, the top 4 drinks in the world. What do you think is a top one, Professor Hunter?
it should be water.
It should be.
Should
Yes, it
be
is.
water.
Woo!
Okay. All
Ah,
right.
yes, and I see you sipping on your water.
Yeah, I have
Yes,
to. I gotta
thank
stay
you. That's
hydrated in these
right.
streets. Yes.
So water is the number one. How about the number two?
It's probably coffee. I was drinking my matcha today, and I was like, "Is this how people feel about their coffee?" Because I was like, I got a big mug, and I was like, I was like
Have
so
you had the
happy.
new one that I mixed all of them together, inspired by you?
What? Wait a
I did
minute.
I did a superfood mix. So it has matcha, it has ashwagandha, it has maca in it, mushroom. Like I put it all together because I know
So I
that's
only need 1 teaspoon instead of me dipping my spoon into all of the different bags.
one
Okay.
singular sensation.
Okay. I love it.
So yes, so we have water as the number one. Number two, we have tea.
Tea is two. Is
Yes.
that because Great Britain made it into a thing to have the tea time with the scones and the and then pass
Um,
it to India,
right.
China?
No,
No, okay.
no. It's because the places that they colonized and attempted to colonize were already tea countries. And the reason why they were instituting that colonization, both going into India and into China, starting whole wars, imagine that your drink is so dear to you that you'll start wars over it. And if we think about the Americas, the United States, I mean, it started with a little dust up, didn't it, about tea? That Boston Tea Party was a thing because the British wanted taxes paid, and they were like, nah, we're having our tea, we're not paying any taxes. And that resonates even today, where people call themselves in newer political parties the Tea Party. So it still exists in the language, right? But that was the beginning of the end for British rule in the United States, in what was the colonies, right? So we have water, we have tea, which is an indigenous traditional drink. Kenya is the second largest producer of tea in the world, right? Of Black tea in the world. And so we may not know that fun fact, right? Number three, what's the third most popular drink? I'm just seeing if
All right, then it has to be it's either coffee or Coca-Cola.
you're
As my
absolutely right,
grandmother,
it's Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is what they
Coca-Cola,
call it. Yes.
Coca-Cola, very embarrassingly Coca-Cola. And then number four is coffee. So imagine the fact that uh, America is a very coffee-driven society, yet it's really the fourth in the world. And when we think about a global aspect of, as you like to call it, and it's absolutely true, a global majority, brown people throughout the world imbibe on tea every day. Coffee tends to be ceremonial. It tends to not be a huge cup, a 20-ounce cup of coffee or whatever the case is, they're drinking it all day. It's more coffee. Coffee is born in Ethiopia. That's the birthplace of coffee. And coffee in Ethiopia is called buna. And buna means community, really, like tradition, like we're all sitting around, like we're having this drink together. So tea is much the same. And when I thought about Kenya and its tea production, I really thought about how much of that tea is passing through from the Black farmer directly to us, and how many of those farmers are being paid fairly for this particular product. And when we talk about this time of the year, we're buying stuff, we're buying gifts, and we may be throwing our money at box stores a whole lot too. But how do we invest in these places that are all about us? And also there's a richness to Africa, not just Ethiopia having coffee as its gift to the world, but imagine all of these teas. Do you enjoy like a leafy tea, like a green or
Well,
black?
I was a green, I was a Sencha, like, and it was funny when I was in Africa and I went to these different places and I was like green tea, and they kept bringing back tea that was brown. And I know that there's some green tea that's brown, but I like my green tea neon. I need it to be neon. And then I discovered matcha, which gives me the color, and it's
Right.
all of that. And I'm right now on your site. I'm at calabashtea.com,
Uh-huh.
and I'm looking at Sunyatta Superfood Master Mix. And the thing about the mixing of these is like I don't know how much of what to put in so
Right.
do a heaping teaspoon of the matcha, and then maybe a little less of that of the maca, and then even a
Right.
little less of that of the mushroom, because you got to be careful with that mushroom. But you have put it all in the formula at the
Yeah.
right dosage.
Yeah, I did, because I just know how it is. And in my own travels, when I have to travel and do things, hanging out with you, going to, Healthy, Wealthy, Wise conference, whatever we're doing, I have to bring my tea with me, and I can't bring like 5 packs of things. So I just combined it in its right formulation, and that works. So as you're hanging out there on the website, I want you to see something. Do you see a tea called Elephant Walk?
Wait, let me Google
So
search
the
this.
elephant
Yeah.
walk is under the black teas and the green teas. And in that you
Okay.
like green tea so
Oh,
much, I want to tell you about this.
all
So
right. This is this okay, y'all. First of all, the Octavia Butler the purple tea is delicious. This is purple too. This
it
elephant walk.
is.
Okay, give me the story here.
So the Activia is purple because it has hibiscus and it has butterfly pea flower. But this tea is actually grown in Kenya. And I absolutely love the idea of us connecting directly to our farmers, and the people you see there are actual people we know, right? And the idea that this tea is the only tea in the world that contains certain bioflavonoids, right? Like these nutrients that help immune boosting. They help our free radicals like calm down in the system. And that's when we get back to like fibroids and tumors. And, we want those things in our system to give us the ultimate health. So, the idea of eating the rainbow, which we've talked about a lot before, there's one particular color in the rainbow that's very difficult to get in our diets, and that's purple. And so blueberries, I know the name is blueberry, but it's actually deep purple, right? You have purple cabbages, purple onions, that kind of thing. But this tea, Kenyan tea that's grown at the 6,000 above sea level and higher, is unique because it contains the bioflavonoid that makes things purple. And so within the context of making things purple, this anthocyanin is delicious, and the tea just tastes rich, and it's not too green. Like sometimes, I know you love matcha, but sometimes I find matcha to taste a little too top green.
Yeah, I like that though. I mean, and I think everyone should. No, I mean, I'm working on some things. And started back writing, and I was
Love it.
kind of breaking down for the new year when I eliminated sugar from my tea experience, and it was gradual, because my dad and I used to drink Liptons with a lot of milk and a lot of sugar. That was one of our things while we played
Yeah.
Scrabble. It's like candy.
Oh,
And I remember, saying to myself, well, what would it taste like with only 2 teaspoons instead of three? And what would it taste like with one, And then going into Tivana the first time, and, they have all of those samples out there. And
yeah.
for the first time, really getting to taste the
The tea
elements.
itself.
Yeah.
The tea itself.
Um, that's an experience. And to me, anyone that's going to, Calabash to get tea,
Mhm.
but you're, over indulging in the sugars, you're missing the very, I feel like it's almost counteracting the things that you're trying to do with the elements that you're bringing together.
Right. You know what? I love what you said about dialing the sugar back. Sugar is so close in our brains to cocaine, and who doesn't love cocaine? But I will say that
Oh,
jokes. But I
yes.
but I will say that it's a hell of a drug, and sugar is a hell of a drug. And so what ends up happening is that the addiction that takes place with sugar and salt to another extent, and we'll definitely talk about that, that addictive quality of sugar is so intense that we have to dial it back little by little, typically just a little by little. I loved how you did that, where you just said, well, 3 teaspoons, well, how about two, well, how about 1.5, and weeks go by, and then before you know it, you're reducing the amount of sugar in your system.
I couldn't believe that I adjusted. Like, and now today, if I put any sugar in it, it's like, what is this? It does, it's
Does it
fun,
set your teeth on edge?
No, it's like it's weird. But I remember saying, "Huh, 1 teaspoon tastes as sweet as the 3 teaspoons that I
Yeah.
did a month ago."
Yeah.
That adjustment can be made, and I think we don't know that because just like we didn't always grow up with a bunch of sugar in our diets, even though you
Yeah,
know.
the problem is we've become a slave to sugar, and sugar is also what was used to enslave us. So we have this very complicated relationship with sugar, having been, as we talk about tea and the colonization of that, colonization in the Americas and really globally, right? We got to think about Europe and British, the British royalty, et cetera, in particular. They said that the sun never set on the British Empire because their navy was just so great that they went everywhere. Due to that, right? The desire not to pay tariffs and taxes with salts and sugars and things coming out of the Suhail and out of Africa and out of India. They were like, you know what? Let's have people give us free labor. We're going to get free labor in the Americas. You can't have any of these British monarchies, aristocracy, anything without plantocracies. Plantocracies built this country, the capitalist society that we live in, everything from cotton to sugar to spices. This is the backbone of what built wealth for the second and third and fourth aristocratic sons who came to this country and built plantations, right? The Raleighs and the Durhams and the you could tell by the names of places, Maryland and Georgia and Charlotte and you name it, right? And within that context, we have to say to ourselves, well, we have a complicated relationship with something that we were forced to farm, right? And gave our lives for. And how do we break apart from that? And I love what you're talking about with just little by little by little, right? It doesn't have to be cold turkey unless you're that kind of person. I'm that kind of person. I'm just odd. Like I'll just decide I'm not doing that anymore, whatever it is, right? Even being married, I'm like, all right, I'm done with this particular thing. And I'm like, if it's not serving me, I'm not serving it. Goodbye. But I will say that with regard to sugar, so many of the foods that we eat, we don't even realize. This is that holiday time of year, something like a stuffing that we buy in the store, like a dressing, that box can have 16 teaspoons of sugar in that. Do you hear what I'm saying? 16 teaspoons of sugar in a box of something that's salty. Why? It's a cheap filler. It goes in, it helps the weight of the box weigh heavier, and it addicts people ultimately, right? It addicts you. You're like, oh, I really need the taste of that, childhood rice-a-roni or whatever it is, right? So when we have our tea, why not take it like lots of our ancestors did, with just the slightest bit of sweetness or just a tip of the milk that we like, whether it's oat milk, whatever, and just really enjoy the flavor. That's what I love about things from Kenya. Let me tell you about the teas from Kenya. They don't get the credit they should. Kenya is the second largest provider of Black tea on the planet, and it never gets that press. And their supplies of teas that go around the world feed villages back in Kenya. It feeds the farmers. It allows them to farm organically and sustainably. They are miles ahead of even US systems of farming sustainably. So I just absolutely love it. I'm going to send you a bag of this elephant walk.
Too late. I already bought it. Yeah.
Oh,
So no. Let me do what I do.
Oh, snap indeed.
Buy what I did. Yeah, I already did
but
it
that
while you were
elephant
talking.
walk has been for years. I'm gonna let the secret out, right? Has been for years my personal tea. Like I have it under a lock in my house. Nobody can drink mommy's special tea. Like that purple tea from Kenya just hits different. And it's those nutrients. When we talk about the cradle of civilization, many people think about, Egypt or Samaria or, Abyssinia or wherever people are talking. But the truth of the matter is that when we talk about the countries in Eastern, Southeastern and Central, like around Lake Nyanza, which is what we call it, not Lake Victoria, because boo, boo. But this is the cradle of civilization in so many ways. So of course, the most potent things live in that place, I can't say enough about it. When we talk about our global family and being a global majority, everything we eat at this time of the year, everything that we drink, everything we buy, we really have to think about who it's benefiting ultimately. So I appreciate that.
Well, this is a bit of community, something that Dr. Sunyatta does quite frequently in Nubia. And I love this. I've never heard of elephant walk before. And this purple tea looks amazing. And I want to, have my whole purple now with Activia.
The elephants walk right through the tea farm. They just walk through and they like to eat the tea.
Love it. And they live and they got good memories. I need something for that too.
Yeah.
Dr. Amen, thank you so much. I will see you on Sunday in the Nubian streets. Appreciate you and y'all.
So
yeah, see you next week. Check out calabashtea.com, calabashtea.com.